You guys, I did it. I found the absolute worst Christmas album I have ever heard. So I want to preface this with saying that I love a good Christmas album, and I love a good experimental album. And as you guys know, I love progressive rock and prog. So once December hits, I go hard for Christmas music. I've got countless Christmas albums. Every time I'm at like a thrift store or a used record store, I always see what kind of Christmas albums we have on the get-go, because there's something about like bargain bin Christmas albums that I pull so much joy from. And on top of that, I also love some of the classics. Like my collection is full of like Michael Bublé. I've got the Mariah Carey album. I have like the Peanuts album. Lindsey Sterling's album is just brilliant and beautiful. I've got a handful of Bing Crosby and Nat King Cole and Ella Fitzgerald. So lots and lots of Christmas material in terms of the musical variety. And I also love a good experimental album as well. As you guys know, I love prog. Progressive rock is my favorite all-time musical genre. It's essentially what I've dedicated this entire YouTube program to cover. So it was an absolute joy when I went to a local record store and I found this lovely creature right here, a prog rock Christmas. I was very excited about this. I love progressive rock, I love Christmas music, and I felt like this was made for me. So I immediately purchased it, even though it was a little bit on the expensive side. And I went home just overjoyed and ecstatic to finally put this on. And what we got was not good. This was probably by far the worst Christmas album I've ever heard. And that is really saying quite a bit, considering how much Christmas music I have in my collection. Now, I've done a little bit of digging and a little bit of research about what is actually going on within this album. And really, it's produced and spearheaded by Billy Sherwood from Yes. And he's the one that took over after Chris Squire passed away. And he also came in during the late 80s and early 90s, during the Union kind of an era when Chris was taking a little bit of a back seat. So Billy has always had his toe in progressive rock, specifically within the Yes family. And so he's kind of the main mastermind behind this, and he called up a bunch of his progressive rock buddies to help him fill out this album. And there's some really, really good names that are found on this. Like we have Steve Morse from Flying Colors and Deep Purple. There's Nick Turner. There's Sonia Christiana. There's Martin Turner. There's Simone House. Annie Helsman. Even the late, great John Wetton is found on this album. And I thought with all of their presence, all of their influences on this album, we would have something really interesting and really fun to play around with. Unfortunately, all the covers that we have on here are lacklustered. They feel almost like an obligation, and I don't want to blame Billy Sherwood for everything that he's doing on this album, if you know what I mean, but his sound, in terms of the bass work that he has, is extremely present on this album in a detriment. There are a lot of songs that the bass is extremely prevalent that I don't think it really needs to be. And I know he's trying to channel that Chris Squire Yes sound, but it does fall flat. Now, I also want to highlight the only two real good tracks on here, and that's really a stretch. The first is the Carol of Bells that has Steve Morse playing on the guitar. It's a purely instrumental version of Carol of the Bells, and I mean the Carol of the Bells, the track is already outstanding and an amazing feat of music. But even that, some of the solos that we have on Carol of the Bells don't really work all that much. What epic sounds that were originally found on this track are kind of lost in the mix. And I just feel it feels very lackluster at the end of the day. Now, the other one that I really, really like is Silent Night with Nick Turner and Simone House. And Simone House comes from Hawkwind, and I love what they're able to do within this instrumental. It's kind of funny that the two instrumental pieces are actually my favorite pieces on here. But I love their interpretation of this. I love that they do something different with the track, because all the other tracks are essentially a paint by numbers cover. And I know that that's the risk that you run into whenever you produce a Christmas album, is that you're just basically repackaging and repurposing tracks that came before without really doing anything new and exciting. And that's what really got me excited for this album, is having these tracks that I've essentially memorized and I know inside and out and backwards be brought through a progressive rock lens and see what kind of interpretations we can bring to the mix. There are no interpretations. It's a single paint by numbers painting that is extremely lackluster and very monochromatic in that sense. Like, one of the worst ones that I have is Fairy Tale of New York, which I admit hasn't aged as well as I had hoped. Like, I remember listening to A Fairy Tale of New York in high school and being like, they're saying dirty words. But it's just kind of old now. It's dated. And even with Robin McCauley from MSG and Leslie Hunt from District 97, who I love. Like, I love District 97, and I was really excited to see what Leslie would do on this. It's so, like, they missed the mark so hard on already a pretty easy mark to hit, and they reprise the second chorus a second time, and I don't know why they do it instead of just kind of playing out or do something new with the track itself. Now, I guess I should have started with the track that opens this up, which is Run with the Fox, which is a Chris Squire and Alan White original. And it almost feels like a betrayal from the Chris Squire and Alan White track. John Davidson does an all right job at doing that, but he doesn't reach any of the same heights that Chris Squire had with the original work. And then we have a track that I'm not even too familiar with, which is Christmas Lights. And I was excited to hear Kazem Sultan from Unitopia sing on it, because he's one of my favorite prog singers, like channeling that same essence that was Peter Gabriel in the past and really bringing that power that was brought forth. And I just feel like it's a very pale comparison of some of the other things that we could have had on that. Now, I've already talked about the third track of Carol of the Bells. We come to the 12 Days of Christmas. I can't even say it. It's so bad. We come to the 12 Days of Christmas. This one is an abomination. I honestly don't know why anybody would cover this song on a Christmas album unless you're going to do something completely different. Like Bob and Doug McKenzie did a fantastic rendition on their album. That's the only one that I think deserves to be produced. Again, unless you're going to do something extremely different. I was excited to hear Annie Haslam from Renaissance on it, because I love Annie's voice, but she sings the whole carol straight, and it's just grating on me. It really is. Her voice does not match the tone that they're trying to go for. It sounds like I wish I didn't have this on a vinyl, because I always want to skip it. I really do, because there's no big build-up at the end. It feels very short, because once she finishes the 12 days, there's no play-out. There's no, big verbose, and a partridge in a pear tree. It's just, we're done. We've had enough of this song. We're going to move on. And I'm very glad that they do, because, oh boy. So then we come into one of the, I'm not a big fan, but I don't hate it as much as others. The Wonderful Christmas Time, the Paul McCartney track. And I feel like this is kind of a staple for a prog album. This is like Billy Sherwood's and Patrick Moraz, who is another Yes band member. It doesn't do anything. Like, it's a little bit of a highlight because it doesn't grate on me as much as a lot of other tracks do, but this one just falls extremely flat, and I'm left with blah. And then we come to Martin Turner's take on I Believe in Father Christmas, and I'm not surprised that Martin, original bass player and singer from Wishbone Ash, I'm not surprised that they covered this one because it is a prog staple. Like, I Believe in Father Christmas is probably the most popular Christmas track that's been released by a progressive rock outfit from Greg Lake. It just Oh man, they did not do this one justice at all. Like, as much as I love Martin's singing style and his presentation, he is not Greg Lake, and I don't think he really honored the late great Greg in producing this song and singing on it. He doesn't have that minstrel essence of it. Like, I almost feel like it would have been better served if John Wetton did this, because John can have that rustier, almost bass style of singing that is needed for this. And I feel like John would have really played tribute very well to Greg on this track, but Martin does not. And it's a shame. It really is a big shame. So that's the first side. I've already covered a couple of these from the second side. I've already covered Fairy Tale of New York and Silent Night. Let's talk a little bit of O Come All Ye Faithful from Sonia Christiana. And really, it's fine, but it's, I don't know, there's no real interpretation of it. It's just singing the regular carol. And A Christmas Song with Sajus Van Neer, I believe is how you pronounce it. It just, I don't know. It doesn't work for me. It really doesn't. Like, it feels like something that Jethro Tull was trying to do, because Jethro Tull has a number of Christmas albums, and I really, really do enjoy those, but it just doesn't quite work. Now, I haven't actually talked about You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, and this is Malcolm Malcolm McDowell. I always want to call him McDonald. Malcolm McDowell. His big claim to fame was playing Alex DeLarge in A Clockwork Orange, the Stanley Kubrick film. He's a good actor, but I do feel like he's been riding his coattails for the rest of his career since that performance. And this is not a good song. Like, there is, again, no interpretation of this. And the ending where he's like, yeah, baby. I'm like, no. Austin Powers is like almost 20 years too old at this point. And it's cringe in the worst kind of way. It's not even a very fun one. I don't know. Like, if you're not going to do anything new to the track and you're not Boris Karloff, don't touch it. You know, like, just don't. Just really don't. And this brings us to the last track, because I've already talked about Silent Night with Nick Turner and Simon House. With Happy Christmas, War is Over, John Wetton performs this one. And again, it's a really pleasant track, and I love what John is able to do. Like, John has a brilliant and beautiful singing voice. He really matured his voice in his later years, and may he rest in peace. I just wish that the music that was surrounding it was a lot better. This isn't necessarily my favorite Christmas track, and John Lennon's War is Over. I don't know. I always felt like, I don't know. I have issues with the track. I'm not going to really get into it here. It was never really a favorite of mine. And I just wish they did something more with it. And at the end of the day, that's really what I'm left with the most, is wishing they had done more, especially with a genre of music that is so principled in doing more. Like, if you look at the Yes back catalog and their interpretations of Simon and Garfunkel's America, where they took a very simple track and then just exploded that, I was really hoping that we'd have more of that here, especially with an ex-Yes member, or I guess he's a current ex-member. He's a current member of Yes when he wasn't a... Anyway, with the leadership of Billy Sherwood, I thought that there would be a lot more fun aspects to it, but at the end of the day, this thing left me so... I don't want to say angry, but disappointed. That was one of the things. It's like, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. And I really wish that there was just more to it. I think they could have shaved off half of these songs and stretched their legs in the other half. And I'm trying to think of the best way to put this without sounding offensive. But it does feel like a Boomer's prog Christmas album rather than a progressive rock Christmas album, you know? Like, it feels like an artist who essentially their prime is done with and they don't know what to do. Their last or another attempt to still stay relevant and current, but failing so short from the mark that it's laughable. That's what I feel like this album is. And I mean, as much as I love So Bad It's Good materials, this one might be one of those. It might be one of those So Bad It's Good. I'm going to put it on the shelf. I'm going to let it percolate and ferment and mature. And hopefully next year when I revisit it at the Christmas season, I'm going to get more enjoyment out of how bad it is. So that's kind of where I'm at. Do not under any circumstances go and find this out unless you are morbidly curious of how bad this thing is, because oh boy, is bad. And I mean, this is going to be one of only 2 or 3 albums that gets the rating of it's an abomination to my ears. Because it really is. It really is. And that's all I really have to say about A Prog Rock Christmas. What did you guys think? If you've heard this album before, let me know of your own thoughts about it. And also let me know of your least favorite Christmas album or least favorite Christmas song. Let me know of that, as well as your experiences with this album, by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.